Right, my friends, Ryan Lee here. Welcome back to the Wealth Outside of Wall Street channel, where, my friends, you, no matter where you're starting from, even if you're an 18-year-old getting ready to get out of high school and go to college, where you learn how to take control over your money and become financially free. Now, listen here. I'm going to be doing something that I don't normally do on this YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to be going behind the scenes. I'm going to be opening up the curtains, and I'm really going to take you behind one of the trainings that I'm doing for my money mastery community. And I'm going to share with you what me and my son are doing. In fact, this is the way that I built some of my wealth. Once I finally took control over my money, stopped putting it in a 401k, and actually started finding a way to use leverage. Leverage is a pathway to building wealth. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you behind the scenes and walk you through a case study that my son and I are getting ready to implement in his life. Now, my son is 18 years old. He's graduating high school. I'm so proud of him. And he's going to go off to college. Now, this is not a video on whether or not he should go to college. This is a video on, if he's going to college, what if we use the greatest form of leverage of all, which is creativity? What if we use creativity, a form of leverage, to build wealth while he's going to college? And what if, just walk with me on this scenario, what if he actually graduated college as a millionaire? Let me walk you through this, okay? So come with me, let's go behind the scenes and let's check this out. Now, we call this the black box. Inside of our money mastery community, I call this the black box of real estate investing. Why? Well, because there is so much to learn and understand. I think a lot of people just think, hey, I'm going to invest my money in real estate and one day I'll wake up and I'll be financially free. And while there might be some truth to that, I think for as many millionaires as real estate can create, it probably destroys twice as many people because they don't understand the details of the black box. Now today what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through some of the creativity that we can now get into when we start using our brains as the best investment tool that we have. So I'm going to title this for you, The Millionaire College Graduate. Let's get after it and let's show you how this is going to work. Here's what I'm going to be training you on today. I'm going to be training you on a very unique form of investing that is available to anyone, including you, called live-in investing. There's 5 steps that I'm going to walk you through, and it's how you can acquire a home that is both your home and at the very same time an investment asset. Okay, so 5 simple steps to make this strategy work for you, and if my son can do it, I promise you, you can do it as well. Okay, so number 1, creativity is the ultimate form of leverage. Inside of this video, I want you, there's a lot of reasons why you can't do it. I totally get it. You're going to come up with a lot of reasons why that doesn't apply to me, and you're going to shut your brain off, which will ultimately shut your pathway to creating wealth off. So keep your brain on, my friends, and let's replace cash with creativity. Let's replace money with motivation, and let's replace dollars with determination. I think one of the biggest things that hold people back from the game of real estate, including my 18-year-old son, is the fact that he doesn't have any money, right? And you might be in that same position as well, where, hey man, life's been tight, my budget is tight, I don't have any money to invest. Even if I do, it's all locked up in my dang 401k. So here I'm going to walk you through a conversation that Doug and I were having a few days ago. Doug is my son, and how I opened up this idea, man. Hey, yeah, you don't have cash, but man, let's get creative. Yeah, you don't have money, but what if you were motivated? Yeah, okay, no dollars, but man, what if you were determined what would be possible for you? Okay, now I'm going to pre-emphasize this because I don't have any disclaimers on here. So here's my legal disclaimer. This is a bad idea. You could lose money. Real estate sucks. And my friends, you shouldn't actually do this. But maybe this could be true. Okay, what if I could tell you that if I could do it, not knowing much about real estate almost 20 years ago, if my son, who's 18 getting into college, can do it, I'm telling you for you that there might actually be a chance that with a little motivation, with a little creativity, and with a little determination, you could actually become a millionaire very, very quickly. So let me walk you through it, okay? I'm gonna walk you through a 3-part series. Number 1, the strategy. Number 2, the math. And number 3, the creatively partnering. This is how I'm entering this equation with my son. Okay, so step number 1, inside of this live-in strategy, my son is gonna purchase a property as an owner-occupant. Now, I'm not gonna give you all the details of how we're actually doing this, but I want to suffice it to say, my son has had some work history behind him. I'm likely going to co-sign on a loan with him, but we're going to buy a property that he will both live in as well as count as a rental unit. Okay, so we're gonna buy a property that you or someone else will live in. When I say someone else, what if you partnered with your kid and you're not gonna live in it, but your kid is? Or what if you bought a property for your parents or for your brother or your sister? You're gonna buy a property that someone that you know is going to live in for at least 1 year. Now, there's details why it has to be a year. I'm gonna save that for another day. But when you're buying a primary residence, you're going to get more favorable lending terms. Like if you come in and you want to buy a property as an investor, you've got to put 20% down as a minimum. But if you come in and say, hey man, I'm not going to be an investor, I'm going to live in this property, or hey, my son's going to live in this property. Now we get to come to the table and we can buy the property with as little as 0 down, 0%, or more commonly about 5% down. So anywhere from 0 to 5% using FHA, USDA, and even VA loans. So we get the opportunity with much smaller amounts of money to buy a property. You can qualify for an unlimited amount of owner-occupied home loans. Now, I'm gonna say this very carefully. My friends, leverage is the key to you building wealth. Leverage is the key to winning in an inflation-driven economy. And knowing this system, you can access as much leverage, as many loans as you possibly want, because everyone has a constitutional right to access loans to live in. So what if you bought a property, you lived in it for a year, then you moved out, you bought another property, lived in it for a year, then moved out, bought another property? You can kind of see where this is going. You could access as many loans as you possibly want. And you can buy anything under 4 units because it all qualifies as a single dwelling for an individual. So if you buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, you still get the same loan terms. Now we're going to get to section number 2, step number 2 in the live-in investment strategy. And this is occupy the home for 1 year. You got to live in the home for at least 1 year to be considered. If you don't, it's considered loan fraud. If you go get a loan from a bank as a owner occupant of a home and you live there for 2 months and flip it into an investment property, technically, my friends, you've committed loan fraud. Don't do that. That was part of my disclaimer up front. You shouldn't do it. It's a bad idea. Don't be dumb, okay? All right, number 2, can acquire a home. You can acquire a home that needs repair, and you can do the repairs while you live in the home. This is how my wife and I built our wealth. We moved several times for my profession back in the day, and we would buy a house and fix it up every single time we lived in it. And then when we would move out, it was a more desirable house, it was easier to rent, and we built our wealth this way, okay? You can have roommates that live in the home with you, and you can use the rent to help you cover the mortgage. If you're going to be the property manager, ensure that you are effectively managing the property. So if you're buying a house and bringing people to live in the home with you, and you know the house is an investment for you, you're gonna treat the house like an investment. Therefore, you're gonna manage your tenants, even if they're your friends or family. You're gonna make sure they're paying rent and they're taking care of the home, okay? Because this is building your wealth. Step number 3, you're gonna transition to a new owner-occupied property. So after 1 year, after you've lived in the property for 1 year, you can move out of the home. Knowing that you're gonna move in 1 year, just minimize the clutter. Don't buy a bunch of crap, just live very minimally and know that you're gonna move year after year after year. It's gonna make it a lot easier to move. You're never gonna put roots down, you're never gonna really get attached. You're using this strategy to build wealth. Then you're gonna find a brand new live-in investment property that you're gonna live in for 1 year. Step number 4, my friends, you're gonna convert the initial property that you were living in a year ago, you're now gonna convert that to a rental property. Okay, the key to this strategy is to keep the original property you lived in and convert it into a rental. Don't sell the property. You bought it for 5% down, convert it to a rental, buy the next property for 5% down and convert that into a rental, okay? When you're looking for a property, think like a renter, not a homeowner. This is a big challenge. Most people look when they're buying a home and they want it in the perfect neighborhood with the white picket fence and everything has to be perfect. That's not what you're looking for, my friends. You're looking for a property that a lot of people would want to live in. It's gonna make a great rental home. It's probably by highways, by jobs, by schools, by somewhere where people are kind of transient and looking for a place to rent. That's what you're looking for, my friends. Step number 5, repeat the process. That's it. You're looking to build sequential acquisition. This is the key to your success. You want to optimize your investment process, and you should always be looking for your next live-in investment. So your mind is always looking, where do I want to live next? Where is a good rental property that I could buy, live in, maybe fix up, have some renters live there, and transition it to a rental property? This is how you're going to go through this entire cycle. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. So let me just walk you through kind of a little case study here. Year 1, you buy a property for 5% down as a live-in investment. You live in it. Year 2, you convert the previous home to a rental home. You buy your next primary resident as a 5% down payment, and you live in it. And you just keep repeating this process every single year as many times as you possibly want to do it. Okay, now my son and I, this is the case study, this is the plan that we're putting together for him as he's getting ready to graduate high school and go into college. Now he's planning to go to college for 4, 5, maybe even longer than that. He might get an advanced degree, but we're gonna really test this out somewhere between 3 to 5 years, okay? And so the objective would be for the first 5 years, Doug will buy a property, we'll put 5% down, he'll live in the property, we'll have tenants, other college kids live in the house with him, he's gonna manage the property, make sure that everyone's taking good care of the property, then he's gonna move out of the first property, but we'll buy the next property, and we're just gonna repeat this for 5 total years. At the end of 5 years, Doug's gonna go off, he's gonna graduate, who knows what his life's gonna do after that. Hopefully he stays in Utah so I get to live by him because I love my son. But then the next property he's gonna buy, he's just gonna buy it with his own money. I'm not gonna be partner with him on it. He'll put 5% down and go live in his primary residence that he wants to start his family in. Now what we're gonna do is from year 6 through year 9, we're gonna hold the properties. We're just gonna let them go up in value. Doug will still be the PM, property manager over these properties, and then in year 10, we have an opportunity to 1031 out our individual interests in the ownership of this portfolio. Now, there's a lot of detail here, my friends. I'm not gonna go into all the detail of how this is done. More than anything, I hope I'm opening up a possibility for you. 5 properties, 5 years, 5% down on each property, hold those 5 properties for 5 more years, then split our interest in it, and we all walk away with the profits that we're gonna have, which I'll show you here right now, okay? Let me help you understand why leverage is such a powerful, powerful component when it comes to real estate, okay? Let's say we buy this property right here, and let's say we buy it for $100,000. Now, don't let the numbers confuse you. Yeah, maybe you can't buy a property for $100,000. All I'm doing is showing you math here, okay? So we buy the property, and at the end of 1 year, we're not gonna consider tax advantages or rent or cash flow or anything like that. Let's just say it goes up in value by $5,000, right? At the end of the year, the property that we bought last year for $100,000, someone else would buy it from us today for $105,000. This equals a 5% return if our entire purchase price was done with cash. But let's look at this from a different perspective. What if we decided to buy this as an investor, right? You might be watching this channel because you're an investor. What if we bought it as an investor? Well, we're not going to buy the thing in cash. We're going to take 20% down. This is what we'll bring to the table. If you're doing this the way I share, this is going to come from your vault. The other 80% is going to come from a bank, right? And this is how we're going to buy the property. Now, because you only put $20,000 into this equation, the property still appreciates by $5,000, but here's the crazy part. Your return just went from 5% to 25%, my friends. Now, here's the thing I want you to consider. The compound annual growth rate of real estate over the last 40 years, dating all the way back to 1965, all the way up here to 2022, it's been steadily up. Now, it's been massively up in the last few years. That's not going to continue. It's actually gone down and it's going to flatline for a little while. But that's not really the point. The point that I want to make for you right here is the annual compound growth rate of real estate nationwide, there's been some markets where it's been higher, some markets where it's been lower, has been around 5%. What this actually means is the compound annual growth rate from 1965 to present is 5.4%. If I put a 20% down payment and I just hold the real estate and it's averaging 5.4% growth rate, my annual return is 27%. But man, here's where the math gets crazy. If all I do is put a 5% down payment, because I'm going to live in it as an owner-occupant for 1 year, my same rate of return with a compound annual growth rate of 5.4% is 108%. I want you to consider this for just a moment, my friends. I started off this video saying, replace cash with creativity. If you could be a little bit creative, put a little bit of sweat equity in, what would your financial plan look like if you could get 108% annualized return without having to go to Las Vegas? My friends, this is what the strategy actually equals. Now, this software that I'm sharing with you on this video is proprietary software that we use inside of our Money Mastery community to validate and vet what real estate makes sense to buy. So there's going to be a little bit of a disconnect of what we're doing here, but nonetheless, I'm going to share with you why we're buying property that on paper might not actually make sense, but you're going to see how it makes sense here in just a moment, okay? If we buy a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home, we purchase it for about $250,000. This is in our local market. We do have property available, and I'll show you some examples for $250,000. We buy a property with a 7% fixed mortgage rate, which is about the rates right now. We're gonna hold it for 30 years, okay? Or excuse me, we're gonna get a 30-year fixed mortgage. Our monthly payment on the property plus private mortgage insurance and taxes is gonna be about $1,500 a month. So to buy this property, we're gonna have about $1,500 a month going to the bank. 2-bedroom, 2-bath, okay? 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Now, what you can see here is all of my numbers on this are negative. Where if I was buying this as a typical investor, I wouldn't buy this property. It's not cash flow positive. It's not getting me what I want. My expense ratio is too high. My rent to value is too high. This is not what I'm going to buy. But if I'm buying this as a live-in owner-occupant that I'm going to move out in a year, the entire game changes. So here's what that would look like. Now, these numbers are kind of small, so zoom in with me for just a moment. But here's step number one of this, okay? We hold the property, and in year one, I want you to consider this. In a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home, I would have 2 renters in one room, 2 renters in the other room, okay? So 4 renters in a home at a time. And with each one of these renters, I could charge them $500. Now, one room would have 2 renters at $500 each. The other room would only have 1 renter in year one at $500 each because my son is gonna live in the room with that other renter, which means I'm collecting $1,500 of rent. But if I look at my fixed expenses of having a mortgage, my property tax, my private mortgage insurance, all of that, I've got a negative cash flow in year one of $448 per month. In year one, I'm gonna lose about $5,300 in total negative cash flow this year. My cash on cash return was negative 32%. If I'm looking at this as, hey, I'm gonna do this forever, this might not make sense. So as you look at this, if my son's living in this property for the next 7, 8, 9, 10 years, it's negative cash flow the entire time. The expenses are too high compared to the rent I can collect. Okay, now here's the crazy part. My cash flow is negative, but I want you to consider this. In real estate, you're actually making money in multiple ways at the same time. You're making money with tax advantages, with appreciation, with amortization. So if we look at all of this, in year one, yeah, I had a negative $5,000 return in cash flow, right? I was out of money, out of pocket money, but I had principal pay down. My tenants actually helped me pay down my mortgage. And because they paid out my mortgage, that's equivalent to a $2,400 return, a 14% return on my money. My appreciation still by, compound annual growth rate of 4.6%, or excuse me, what did I say, 5.7%. At the compound annual growth rate that I shared with you earlier, if my property's appreciating, that's equivalent to a $13,000 increase in value or an 85% return based on only having put 5% down. So my total return in making money in multiple ways, including the fact that I lost money with cash flow, I'm still up on this thing $10,000, which is a 65% return. Now here's where it gets crazy, my friends. Here's where it gets crazy. You ready for this? We bought the property for $250. We're gonna hold it for 10 years. We're gonna have renters in it. And even though I'm negative cash flow, even if my son lives in this property for 10 years, which he's not, I'm just gonna show you what it would look like if he did live there for 10 years. At the end of 10 years, the same property is valued at $428,000 because the other renters in the property have been paying off my mortgage for me. My mortgage is now down to $200,000. I have an equity position of $224,000. My friends, even if my son lives in the property and I have negative cash flow, I'm still making money. But now I want to show you why it gets amazingly better if we convert every property to a rental property, okay? Same exact scenario, same exact property, but now the only difference is in year two, the rent decline, the lower rent that I had in year one is now going to go up in rent because I'll have 4 tenants in the property, not 3, because my son will move out. So in year one, we had $1,500 in total collected rent, but in year two, we go from $1,500 to $2,000 in total collected rent. We go from losing $5,000 to actually only losing $227. Now, again, one thing to consider with this is every couple of years, I get an opportunity to slowly raise my rents with inflation. So over time, that negative is actually now putting a little bit of money in my pocket every single year. And by the time I get 7 years out, I'm at a 10% cash on cash return, which in my world means, yeah, you should do this. But here's where it gets continually more crazy. In year one and year two, right, I'm still getting my 4-pillar return. I'm still making money in lots of different ways. And I'm still having the property that's gonna have $200,000 of equity in it. But now, because my son moves out, my cash on cash return, my total collected rent is gonna go up with every sequential property that we buy. So here's the situation. Okay, so what I want to do is I just want to show you the value of buying just one home. Okay, so that first home that I told you, what if we bought it at $250,000? Okay, year one, here's the money I'd have into the deal. I would have to come out of pocket if I'm gonna fund the down payment, or maybe my son and I partner on the down payment, but someone's gonna have to come out at that 5% down, about $16,000. Year one, we're gonna have total negative cash flow of about $7,900. Year two, total negative cash flow about $580. By year three, we're about break even and we're starting to trend positive. This same property in year 10 will have a positive annual cash flow of $3,000 because slowly we're raising our rent. Our property value will now be $428,000 versus a mortgage of $224,000, and we'll have a positive equity position of $224,000. My friends, this is a 951% return. The numbers, the math, it's insane. It's insane because we have so little money into it. This is where we start to grow wealth with almost nothing into it. But remember, we did this 5 times. Year 1, we buy a property, then he moves out, we turn it into a rental, and we do this 5 total times. Then in year 6, my son goes off out of college, does his thing. We as a partnership hold our portfolio for 5 more years, and then at the end of year 5, we 1031 exchange tax-free our interest in the real estate elsewhere. So let me walk you through this. In year 1, I'm assuming we're gonna have a mortgage of $250,000 at 7%. In year 2, I think interest rates are probably going to start to go down. I don't know, but I ran the numbers. The cost of buying the same type of property, because inflation is going to continue to make the homes more expensive, I'll have to buy the same type of property in year 2 at $263,000. But I'm also assuming I'm going to have a little less of a mortgage, 6% interest rate, which gives me a more positive cash flow position. And then in year 3, to buy the same property, it's going to cost me about $277,000. We'll have a little bit lower mortgage of 5.5. Year 4, $292,000 to buy the same property, 5.5% mortgage, and then by year 5, the last property that we buy, it'll cost us $300,000. But again, I'm assuming a 5.5 mortgage. Okay. Now, after 5 years, we're going to hold these properties. Okay. Here's what that's going to look like. Okay. 5 properties. The total portfolio that I want you to consider. Okay. I said that at the end of this case study, my son would be able to graduate a millionaire. Here's what I mean. The total portfolio acquisition price. This is how much we bought each property for, not how much money we put into it. Remember, in property number 1, we bought it for $250,000. Property number 2, we bought it for $263,000, so on and so forth. So the total portfolio acquisition price was $1.3 million. Our cumulative down payment, somebody, myself, if I'm going to partner with my son, would put in $90,000 total combined to buy all 5 of these properties, and we would have a total negative cash flow with each year, my son moving out, of about $22,000. So total dollars out of pockets to buy a 5 property portfolio with a purchase price of $1.3 million is going to be about $111,000. Okay, so $111,000. Okay, now here's the crazy part. I want you to zoom in so you can see these numbers here with me right now. Okay. In year 1, we have 1 property, 1 total property, right? Like I said, $1,500 in rent. We have negative total cash flow in year 1. But year 2, we now have 2 properties, right? We still own the first property, but now we bought a second property. So our total rent is $3,600. The rent in property number 1 went up because my son moved out. And now the rent in property 2 is a little bit lower because he's living in that property. But we have more money coming in. So our total negative cash flow is $4,600. Year 3, we now have 3 properties. We have total monthly rent coming in of $5,700. We're losing $3,400 in that month. Year 4, we lose $477. Year 5, we lose $440. But year 6, we have a total positive cash flow in that year, $5,900. By the end, we've got a total positive cash flow of $14,000. At the end of 10 years with 10 properties, our total combined 4-pillar return just in year 10. When I say 4 pillars, we're making money through cash flow, through principal, through tax savings, and through amortization. Our cash flow, we earned $14,000 on the portfolio in that year. We have $23,000 in principal pay down from tenants paying down the mortgage for us. We have $3,600 in depreciable tax expenses, and we have $107,000 in appreciation. And so in this solo year, we didn't put any new money into it. These are just the properties that we bought these first 5 years. We earned $149,000. Now here's where it's crazy, my friends. By year 10, here's the total portfolio. The portfolio is valued at $2.1 million. We have $1.1 million of mortgage still on it, and we have a portfolio value of $976,000. This is a $976,000 equity position that's also putting $149,000 per year into our pocket. My friends, do you see the power of this? Now, at the end of all of this, we could choose as partners to keep the property. We could choose to walk away. We could 1031 the interest that I would have in the portfolio, the interest that my son would have in the portfolio. But you see, if my son's willing to put some sweat equity in over 5 years of going to college, he could literally graduate a millionaire. Literally graduate a millionaire. Now it's going to take a little bit of time for that to happen, but do you see the power of using our creativity and replacing that creativity with cash? Most college kids graduate with debt. What if you or your son graduated with an asset, a base of assets behind you? So now I'm just going to walk you through a couple of ideas for creatively partnering, okay? This is my son. I really believe the essence of all successful real estate partnership between two people lies in clear communication and expectations, shared goals, complementary skills, mutual trust, and a commitment to collaboration. So the number one thing I'd want to make sure if I'm going to partner with my son, that we align on these things, okay? How are we going to communicate? I want to take our partnership and I want to put it in a box. In the box of real estate, this is how we're going to interact. And outside of the box of real estate, we're going to be father and son. We're going to be buds, okay? Do we have clear communication and expectation? Do we have the same goals? Does my son even care about building wealth? I don't know. Let's figure it out together. If not, then this is not a thing for us. If yes, then here's a creative way that I can bring what I can bring to the table and you can bring what you can bring to the table. That's the complementary skills. I don't want to move every single year, but I bet my son, if I said, hey, you could have a multi-million-dollar portfolio if you're willing to move 5 times during college and live in a box for 5 years, he's going to be okay with that, right? Do we have mutual trust? Do we trust each other to do the best for each other? Do we trust each other to stay committed and collaborate to make this work? So this is the art of partnering. Now, here are the things that my son's going to bring to the table. Desire. He wants to graduate with options. He came to me the other day, and this is what sparked the conversation. He's like, Dad, I want to be an engineer, but I'm so worried that I'm not going to make enough money. I'm worried that I won't ever be able to pursue my hobbies. He loves woodworking, and he's wondering if when he goes to college, he's going to lose all of the money that he's not going to have enough money, he's not going to make enough money. His exchange, he's willing to hustle. He's willing to property management. For me, my desire would be, man, I want to teach my son some skills. I want to partner with him and teach him how to creatively think about money and how to creatively build wealth with little to nothing down. I want to get an adequate return, but I'm not really looking at this to build wealth. I want to build wealth inside of a human asset, my son. I can bring my knowledge, I can bring capital, I can bring credit, maybe I can bring high expectations, okay? So we can bring this together, and here's how we would start to collaborate. We would put our collaboration in a box. We would start with the why. We would set clear expectations. We would have clear inputs and outputs into the partnership, clear roles and responsibilities within the partnership. Hey, I'm gonna do this, you're gonna do that. Clear timeline and duration of partnership. If my son comes to me after 1 year and says, Dad, it's too hard, I don't wanna do it, then we didn't meet the guidelines of our partnership. So clear timelines. An on-time and an untimely exit strategy. If my son does come to me at the end of 1 year and says it's too hard, how do we get out of the partnership after 1 year, even though we were trying to keep it on for 10? A partnership accounting and communication protocol and conflict resolution. We put all of this into a partnership agreement, whether it's with me and my son, whether it's with you and a family member, you and a friend, whatever it is. Put your relationship in a box, define what that box is meant to accomplish, then keep everything else outside of that box. Sign the agreement with each other, right? We're gonna sign, and our name and our signature means that we're committing to this partnership with each other. And here are some of the real estate that we found. Now, here's the cool part. When you're looking for investment real estate, there are some really good options. There are some really funny options, but consider what we're trying to do. In the area that we're looking for, at the price point that we were looking for at the time, we found 9 different properties. Here's an example of a property kind of at the higher range, $300,000, 3-bedroom, 1 bath, which I really like. Here's one that we found for $210,000, and it's a castle. I mean, come on now, it's a castle. This would be an awesome house to have if you're going to college. Can you imagine my son and 3 roommates living in a castle as freshmen in college? What we did is, this is kind of just an analysis of what's the best price point, what's the best rent room ratio and rent ratio. But at the end of the day, we just want to do something that is creatively solving problems. The things that we talked about is it's always our fault. If something isn't working, it's not the economy's fault. It's what are we learning from this? We have to eliminate it's not my fault. We always have to take personal accountability. The answer is not I can't, it's how can I? The question is, how do we proactively think? Dollars follow value. And some of the things that he's gonna do to increase the likelihood of people wanting to rent the home with him being the property manager, he's gonna cook a meal every single week. Remember, he's advertising probably to parents who are sending their kid to college, and if he advertises a home where there's a home cooked meal every single week, then it's gonna make parents more incentivized or likely to wanna send their kid to that home. Now, another thing he's considering is if he can have a pet in the house. Now, many kids grow up with pets, they leave home, they can't bring their pet with them to college, but what if my son, because he owns the house, can have a pet in the house? And it's like a live-in friend to make, the new incoming students have a little bit more accommodating time to live with a home-cooked meal and a nice friendly pet. And then my son loves games, so he's gonna also market and advertise that there'll be weekly game night, a way to interact, a way to make new friends. So my friends, with all of this in mind, this is how the game would go. Now, let me give you the alternative. The alternative will be, what if my son decided not to partner with me? Here's kind of what we were looking at, okay? We sat down, and he wants to be an engineer. Now, like I told you already, he loves woodworking, he loves being a craftsman, but the average salary that he's looking at coming out of college is around 73,000 bucks, okay? Around $73,000. Let's say he graduates and he makes this amount of salary. He begins saving 10% of his income, his after-tax income. That would allow him to save roughly $6,500 a year. So graduate college, 4 years, 4 to 5 years from now, starts making $73,000, pays taxes on that $73,000, and after the net amount of what's left over after taxes, he saves about $6,500 a year. How long would he have to save to have $1 million? Okay, now in addition to this, he probably at some point is gonna wanna buy a house for himself. Now, I was giving you Utah, that's where we're at, but the average down payment on a home in Utah is about 43,000 bucks. So if he's going to save up after college his 6,300 bucks, it's gonna take him 6.5 years to get into his own house. Okay, not to mention that, in order to have $976,000, which is the value of the real estate portfolio, by putting it in the stock market, if he's saving $6,500 a year, getting the average return that the market offers, it's gonna take him 41 years. My friends, do you see why there's such a retirement dilemma? If all we did is got creative, got proactive, he could do in 5 years what would have otherwise taken him 41 years. My friends, I hope this has opened up for you the opportunity to think, to expand your thinking, to realize and understand that creativity is the ultimate form of leverage, that the only thing that's stopping you from building wealth is you. It's your limited belief. It's your paradigm and perception of the way you see the world. That, my friends, is why you're right here, right now, on the Wealth Outside of Wall Street channel, is to gain access to an expanded paradigm of what's possible for you. I promise you, my friends, if my son can do it, if I can do it, you can do it as well. And hopefully this gave you the perspective that anything is possible. Join me on the next video where we likely won't go into a case study, but I'm gonna continue to expand the ideas, the philosophies, and the thoughts that you need to have in order to raise your financial intelligence, take control of your money, and really build wealth that's in your control and obtain your freedom. Fearless.